The hum of the city below provided a faint soundtrack to the dimly lit room. The clock ticked steadily on the wall, but time felt irrelevant. Mia adjusted the strap of her dress, its deep emerald hue clinging to her like a second skin. She caught her reflection in the mirror, lips painted a bold red, hair tumbling in loose waves over her shoulders. She looked every bit the vision she needed to be, though the purpose of the night made her heart race. Across town, Ryan leaned against the sleek counter of a hotel bar, his tie loosened and the top button of his shirt undone. His drink sat untouched, condensation forming a small ring on the polished surface. He checked his phone, reading the same text he'd already memorized. Room 304. 9 p.m. The simplicity of the message belied the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior. His wife, Mia, had kissed him goodbye an hour earlier, saying she had plans with friends. He hadn't questioned it. By 8:50 p.m., Mia was in the elevator of a different hotel. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clutched her purse. She knew this was reckless, dangerous even. But the thrill of stepping into the forbidden drowned out the voice in her head, whispering caution. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into the dimly lit hallway, her heels clicking softly against the carpeted floor as she approached room 402. Inside, Ethan waited. His tall frame was relaxed as he leaned against the window, the city lights casting shadows across his sharp features. Ethan wasn't her husband. He was an old flame, one she'd reconnected with by chance at a work event weeks ago. Their conversations had started innocently enough, but the magnetic pull between them had been impossible to ignore. Tonight was the culmination of weeks of stolen glances and flirtatious texts. The door opened, and their eyes locked. Ethan's lips curved into a slow smile as Mia stepped inside, the scent of his cologne wrapping around her like a spell. "You came," he said, his voice low and warm. Mia closed the door behind her, leaning against it for a moment as she took him in. "I shouldn't have," she murmured, though her body betrayed her, moving toward him. Ethan closed the distance between them, his hands sliding to her waist. "But you did." Their lips met in a kiss that was equal parts hunger and desperation. Mia's fingers tangled in his hair as his hands roamed her back, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. The weeks of restraint crumbled, leaving only raw need in their wake. Ethan guided her toward the bed, their movements fluid and unhurried as if savoring every moment. Meanwhile, Ryan stood outside room 304, his heart pounding in his chest. He'd told himself this was a mistake even as he drove to the hotel. The woman waiting for him inside was someone he'd met at a conference, Isabel. She was confident, alluring, and had made it clear she was interested in him. He'd resisted at first, but the cracks in his marriage had made her proposition tempting. Mia had seemed distant lately, preoccupied with something she never shared. He knocked once, and the door opened almost instantly. Isabel stood there, her dark eyes scanning his face before she stepped aside to let him in. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, her voice tinged with both relief and amusement. Ryan shrugged, his mouth dry. "Neither was I." Isabel closed the door behind him, the click of the lock sounding louder than it should have. She approached him, her fingers trailing along his jaw before pulling him into a kiss that left no room for hesitation. Ryan responded instinctively, his hands gripping her hips as their bodies pressed together. Whatever guilt he'd carried dissolved in the heat of the moment. Hours passed, and the city continued its ceaseless hum. In room 402, Mia lay beside Ethan, her head resting on his chest. His fingers traced lazy circles on her shoulder. "You've been quiet," he said, breaking the comfortable silence. Mia sighed, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. "This can't happen again." Ethan chuckled softly. "You said that last time." She turned her head to look at him, a small smile tugging at her lips despite herself. "I mean it." Sure you do. He leaned down to kiss her forehead, and for a moment the world felt simple. In room 304, Ryan sat at the edge of the bed, pulling his shirt back on. Isabel watched him from where she lay tangled in the sheets, her expression unreadable. "You're not staying?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "I should get home." Isabel nodded, though disappointment flickered in her eyes. "You're a hard man to figure out, Ryan." He offered a faint smile, leaning down to kiss her one last time. "Take care, Isabel." As he drove home, Ryan replayed the night in his mind, the weight of his actions settling heavily on his chest. But when he walked through the door of his apartment and found Maya sitting on the couch, her hair slightly disheveled, and her dress still immaculate, he felt a strange sense of relief. "You're home late?" she remarked, her tone neutral. "Work ran over," he lied, slipping off his shoes. Mia smiled faintly. "Drinks with friends." Their eyes met across the room, each searching for cracks in the other's facade. But neither spoke the truth. Instead, Ryan crossed the room and kissed her, the taste of someone else still lingering on both their lips.